Welcome to the K2 Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Karen Kelly. Every week, I'll be sitting down with a sales executive where they'll share their stories and experiences that produce game-changing results. Let's be honest, sales can be a tough game. I'm sure at some point, we've all delivered a less than stellar demo, been ghosted by a client or two, and sometimes maybe we did more talking than listening. And that's where I can help. The stories and insights our guests share can be applied to your own business, your territory, or with your team, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Our weekly tactics and strategies help you get out of your head and start creating your own path towards game-changing results. Welcome back to the K2 Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Karen Kelly. For those of you who are new, the goal of the show is to share game-changing stories that our guests are experiencing with themselves, their team, or what they're seeing in the industry. Now, working through a pandemic, apathy has definitely become an issue, and we continue to dodge things that are out of our control, as well as the goalposts continually move, and that becomes very difficult to stay motivated and engaged. But with the things we do have control over, as salespeople, what can we do to shift our focus and our attention and look at improving our mindset, creating daily habits and routines, ensuring we're others focused to really create that personalization that they're craving, and also look at our MVAs, our most valuable activities that should be front and center every day. Well, to help me explore these questions and much more, I am delighted to welcome John Barrows to the podcast. John is the CEO of JB Sales. He's a host of Make It Happen Mondays, and he's the author of I Want to Be in Sales When I Grow Up. John, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Karen, thanks for having me on. It's good to see you.
Well, I'm delighted to have this conversation. I know you're going to bring a lot of insights and benefit the audience greatly. So I would say a lot of people in the sales community are aware of who you are, and some may not be. But why don't you start by giving us a little bit of background of, a lot of us got into sales accidentally. So kind of what got you into sales, but more importantly, what keeps you passionate about it today? Because I mean, you deliver, sales training to clients. So where's that transfer of passion and how does it stay relevant today?
Yeah, it's important. I've always said that sales is the transfer of enthusiasm, right? If you do not believe in what you're doing, then go find something else to do. And and you can apply this to anybody, not anybody who's just their job function is sales, but anything, right? Yeah, you pick the most introverted engineer you've ever come across in your life, and you say, "Hey, are you in sales?" And they vehemently deny, like, "No, absolutely not." But then you ask them, "Hey, when was the last time you created something or you solved a problem?" And you watch them explain it and you watch them just the enthusiasm. Oh, well, I did this and this and this. And that to me is the essence of sales, right? And so for me, just very similar to everybody else, I fell into it. I got my degree in marketing because I didn't know what I wanted to be. And then thankfully DeWalt was hiring out of University of Maryland, and it was under the auspice of sales, but it was really event marketing. And so I was there to kind of promote stuff, DeWalt tools and everything, and then graduated to sell to Home Depot and kind of upsell, but it wasn't like hardcore sales. And then I got to Xerox, and that's where I got my real sales education. And it was always, fast forward, I left Xerox, started a company, sold it to Staples. And when I got fired from that company, when I got fired from Staples, because I was not a corporate person in any way, shape, or form, I have no filter and I really don't like playing politics. Um, I was at a little bit of a crisis because I had done an IT services. My startup was an IT services firm that we had sold to Staples. And after 7 years of doing that, I'm now fired and I didn't have a plan B. I was all in on that, right? And they fired me, and I had this like, oh, what do I do now? And I remember being like, am I an IT sales guy? Is that what I am? I'm like, ugh, I don't even like tech. Like, I really don't like computers. I could give a shit about computers. I just want the outcome of it, right? And my wife was the one who helped me understand that, like, help me figure this out. She goes, well, let's take a look at back at your career and say, why were you the top rep at each one of the roles that you had? Like, let's start with DeWalt, right? Why were you one of the top reps in DeWalt? Well, because I thought DeWalt power tools were pretty badass, right? So for me, talking about DeWalt power tools wasn't really that hard. And then when I got to Xerox, it wasn't that I loved copiers. Nobody loves copiers, but I genuinely believed that Xerox was the best company in that space, right? So it wasn't hard for me to represent Xerox as the best copier in the market. Then when I sold at Thrive and why we were the fastest growing company in Massachusetts, I didn't care about technology, but I believed in the people. I believed in what we were doing. And so it changed my perspective because now it said it doesn't matter what I sell. It matters that I believe in what I sell. And now doing what I do, I mean, I started my own little consulting firm. It was just me. So not only was I selling the training, but I was selling myself. And man, if I don't believe in myself, I got bigger problems here. So that passion has driven me, and the bigger picture stuff also. So the journey has been an interesting one. It's been an opportunistic one in a lot of ways, but what keeps me going is the difference that we make for our clients and the employees that I work with. So it's been a pretty fun ride so far.
Well, that's amazing. And, some of the words I just took from there is all in, that belief in product and people. And I think even when I speak with salespeople, I think there's something with the word sales because, as you said, they said, I'm not a salesperson, but yet as they're describing their role, that's exactly what it is, right? And there's a physical reaction that comes with the word sales. So that's just weird that people say
It's a
that.
dirty word.
Yeah, it's a dirty word. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it is. It is. The perception is so negative, and I understand why. By the way, let's go back to the education. Sales is the least educated profession on the planet. So and it's the default profession. People go into school for what they think they want to be at 18 years old, which is insane. And then they get out and they realize either, ooh, I don't want to do this, or B, I can't make enough money doing this. And sales, low barrier entry. I'm pretty good with people. Let me try it out. Now, what happens is you put a kid in that position, okay? And you give them so you put a normal kid who doesn't usually lie, cheat, or steal, right? And then you give them a job in sales, and here's a commission structure, and here's your territory. And you give them limited guidance and say, go. And oh, by the way, if you don't hit your numbers, I'm probably going to fire you. And if you don't hit your numbers, you're probably not going to be able to eat either. So you take that normal kid who would not lie, cheat, or steal, put them in that scenario, and they will do some shady things. They will bend the rules a little bit, right? And so therefore it perpetuates the perception because it's the reality, right? And so now customers are like, oh, these sleazy sales reps, and those sales reps are just saying, oh, whatever, these customers suck, and it's just self-fulfilling prophecy because we are uneducated about this profession. And so that's why I know it has a bad perception in a lot of the movies and everything else. But I still say that sales is the greatest profession in the world when done right. It's the worst when done wrong. So
yeah, and it's kind of that hook or crook mentality without any training. You do what you got to do to get food on the table. But then that's that would say shame on me for companies. It's like what other role do you go into and you don't give them some form of playbook or just some a framework to operate from? Because even you think someone coming in and being told no 1,000 times, but yet not getting the training to learn how to get the yes. Like it's an obvious, there's a revolving door there. So I would agree with you there that there still is, a negative connotation around it. And it's what you're doing that's really helping change that and shift the mindset of both the seller and the buyer.
yeah, trying.
So just what you said, big picture, like it sounds like, you truly want to help people and you believe in yourself, your team, and that's kind of what selling is. Like if you can help them achieve a goal or solve a problem, that's what we're ultimately trying to do, and I think those people that have that mentality are doing it well because they're not, it's coming across scripted or sleazy or just they're very commission focused. And it just brings me to, you defined 12 guiding principles. And I'm just curious because I think for those of you who don't know what they are, I'm sure you can Google them. But some of them are just work smart and hard, always ask for feedback, earn everything, be open and honest with everyone, find your passion. And these are just it sounds like it's fundamentals or pillars of life. And I'm just curious as to, where did these come from? Was there, an awakening experience or just because I think in the absence of some sort of guiding principles or framework, like we kind of are reactive to the environment and other people, but this is almost what keeps us on the straight and narrow. And it seems like, you really wanting to help your customers and being others focused and authentic, it kind of stems back to a little bit of what these guiding principles, are designed for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't remember. Well, I do remember what it was. I don't remember when it was. But it was somebody had recommended the book "Think and Grow Rich" by Napoleon Hill, and I remember. And again, I'm not a big reader here, but I did pick that one up and I read through it. And somewhere in there, it talks about defining your values. and why it's important. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I remember, I couldn't have been more than 22, 23 years old when I read it. And so I just remember sitting down and being like, okay, well, what I mean, I hear everybody the values and what other people. What do I think, right? And the first one was, work hard and smart. Everybody says work smart, work smart, work smart. Shut up. You got to work your ass off to be successful. Like, there's no secret to success. It's working your ass off, right? So I was like, no, shut up about working smart. You got to work your ass off and be smart about it, right? And so it was a lot of these like challenging what others were saying, but also reflecting on myself. And also just things that I genuinely believe in, like what goes around comes around. Like that's one of my guiding principles. I genuinely believe, and there's been so many examples in my life that have proven it for me. And I'm not a very religious person. I'm definitely a spiritual person, and I believe in there's something bigger than just us, right? And the universe does reward positive. Light follows light, and darkness follows darkness in a lot of ways, right? And so taking that long-term view of your career and knowing that what you do today is might not come back to you tomorrow, but it will eventually, in a positive light. So I wrote them down, and it was a really a strong guiding light for me to not only help me make decisions, but also relate to other people. So, for instance, from a hiring standpoint, I tell all my employees, like, hey, these are my guiding principles. And I don't expect you to have all of them, but I do expect you to have some of them. And we have to share these values. Because if you and I share values, Karen, you and I can argue, we can debate, but ultimately we'll come to a pretty good conclusion if we share the same core values. But if your and my values are completely off, we're just going to end up arguing. We're going to end up yelling at each other. And so I think that is so important, and I think it's one of the things that people should be doing right now, and hopefully this pandemic has helped people kind of take a step back and ask themselves what is important to them. You know what I mean? What truly matters to me? And then recenter on what those values are, because once you have that, you can start to look at things in a different view. Because now, for instance, when you're looking for customers, I don't take on customers that don't share values that I have. I mean, I've been mid sales cycle with like senior level executives in big companies with very, a great logo that I would love to have. But as I'm talking to them, I'm like, nope, nope. You're the sleazy sales, you're just, churn and burn and stuff it down their throat type of person in an organization. I want nothing to do with that. So I'm going to respectfully remove myself from consideration of this opportunity. Because also, I also want to. I mean, we talk about work. I only want to work with people I enjoy working with, right? Whether it's employees or customers or anything like that. Why bring on toxic revenue that isn't something, just because you have to? And I get it. I get it. A lot of small business owners, we got to bring in revenue no matter where it comes from. But if you can take a step back first and start by defining your core values and then looking for companies that fit your ideal customer profile, but also align with those values, going back to your comment about just caring about that other person, right? Apathy and empathy and those type of things, that becomes so much easier when you actually give a shit and you align. Because now I'm looking at your website, Karen, and instead of me looking just for a trigger to make a connection to it so I can send you an email and hopefully get a response, I'm looking at your business being like, holy shit, I love what this company represents. Man, their leadership is off the charts, and they're doing some really cool things, and they just happen to be in a sweet spot for me where I know I can help. Then you don't have to worry about a template. You don't have to worry about a script, because it's being genuine when you make that call, when you send that email.
I love that. It's just you're almost reversing it and looking for the true authentic goodness, and then if it fits after, it fits. But how many times have you I can say myself easily, I've midway as well, just that this doesn't feel right. And you just, you have to trust your gut and know that, like, toxic revenue, that's a great term. Just, it's just you have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, because it's not going to do you any good. But I think it's almost a sense of letting yourself down too. It's like, I deviated. This was one of my values, and I deviated from it. And you know that. And I think over time that starts eroding trust and self-belief, because you're like, I'm saying something, but I'm doing the opposite. And where I would add to that is even companies. Think about companies that have a mission statement, and it's basically a tagline on the wall. And then maybe they're not adhering it to it. So, they can recite it, but it's, they hold their title, but there's no behavior. They're not connecting with their team. But then you think about, maybe this is part of the reason why there's so much churn. It's like, who are you attracting? Like, whose values, are they aligning with? Because if you're not sharing the company's values, you're attracting people that share your values that are not positive, right? So I can see it from both sides when you're outreaching, but also for organizations that are hiring salespeople and not having those core values.
Right. So, and having purpose, right? I mean, I think I've always believed, and I know this, that you can't get anybody to do, like, if you're a leader in an organization, you are never going to get your employees to do more than their job if they don't believe in something bigger than themselves. Right? So if you don't share that vision, if you don't live that vision, and to your point, words versus actions, actions are way more than words. So I need to see you living those values on a day-to-day basis. And if I don't as an employee, I'm just going to show up, do my job, get my paycheck, and if another good job comes around, I'm probably going to take that one, right? So but if you are living your values and those values are true to you and your organization, and people feel a part of something bigger than themselves, like, man, you can get people to do some incredible things way beyond what they're quote unquote getting paid for.
Yeah, I think that as sales leaders, if you're listening, I think that's magical there. That they really need to do that and deliver that sense of conviction and belief, because everyone does want to matter and they want to feel that they're part of something else. And when you can do that, like you said, they will do things that are not even part of their performance objectives. Like they'll just go off the charts because you're giving them a feeling. There's an emotional connection there, and you believe in them probably more than they believe in themselves.
Exactly. And that is something that translates to the customer, it translates to,
Hmm.
to success in so many ways because now, I if I believe that I might not think that my product is the best, right? But if I believe my company has the best intentions to do the best for the right type of client, now I'm going out there and representing that in the way that, matters, right? That and I just beg people, if you do not believe in what you sell in some way, shape, or form, if you don't believe that what you do makes a difference for the right client, not for everybody, but for the right client, if you don't believe that, please either go figure out how to believe it by talking to customers, talking to the leadership, and just getting a sense of why do we do what we do? What's the real difference that we make here? And if you can't find that, if that doesn't connect with you, I beg you to go find something else to do. I beg you to go find another company, because you selling something you don't believe in goes back to what we had started with, which is it just perpetuates the perception of sales, because if you're just in it for a commission check, you're just a douchebag sales rep, right? But if you care and you believe in what you do, now, like you said, I don't sell anybody anything. I help you solve problems or achieve your goals. And if your problems aren't big enough and your goals aren't big enough, why are we having this conversation?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think John, the pandemic even has showed people that there's no tolerance for that anymore. Like customers are definitely in the driver's seat, and if they smell that, commission and this very seller focus, like you're out. So where there might have been a little bit more bandwidth, now there's nothing.
There's no tolerance for
Um,
it. Authenticity
yeah,
is the I mean, it's sad, but authenticity is the competitive advantage these days.
yeah, and it almost thinks like, where did we go wrong thinking that that's the competitive advantage? And even when the pandemic is, it's like leading with empathy, and you have to ask yourself, well, what were you leading with before?
Yeah, and please make sure you understand what empathy actually is. I think so many people have a perception of what empathy is, and we were talking before, "Oh, I hope you and your family doing well." Shut up. That is not empathy, right? Empathy is genuinely putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, and the whole walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, and understanding what they're going through on a day-to-day basis, and trying to, not say I relate, but at least understand and have some empathy for what they're going through. This is why, I always cracks me up when sales reps, get mad at a prospect for not responding to them or whatever. It's like, do you have, or ghosting, right? Like, and I fell into this trap when I was younger. If you ghosted me, Karen, if you and I were in a sales process and all of a sudden you ghosted me after like the third or fourth attempt of me trying to get engaged, like get you back, I'd start blaming you on stuff. I'd be like, Karen, professional persistence. What's wrong with you? And da 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 da. Like, you told me all this stuff, and I deserve this. And who am I, right? And when I got woken up to this, unfortunately, is when I pulled my little "I'm holier than thou" type of approach to this, and the person was like, "Sorry, John, my kid's been in the hospital for the past 3 weeks, and so I'm sorry that your emails weren't top of mind for me to get back to." And that moment is the moment I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, who you know what I mean? If they're not getting back to me, that's more than likely there's something going on there and that I can't control, or something I did to put them in that position. So who am I to blame them for not getting back to me, right? Like just I think we all need to I think bigger picture wise, we all need to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes a little bit more these days and get out of our own heads because, my when my dad passed, I found this I found this saying on his wall. He had written it in handwriting, and he had a towards the later stages he had a degenerative disease that just knocked him out. They couldn't figure it out, and towards the end, so he couldn't really write that well. But he wrote on this little notepad, and it was as we were cleaning out his desk and everything. I saw it, and it says, "When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression." And that struck me because I talk about privilege and I bring this up because of I'm privileged and you should be responding to me and all this other stuff. But privilege, when you say something like to a white male like me about privilege, my immediate reaction is I'm not privileged. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, that type of thing. Like I earned everything and I did. I did. But that's not privilege. That's a part of privilege. Privilege is driving down the street and when I get pulled over by a police officer, I'm not scared to death that I'm going to get killed. Privilege is not having to wake up in the morning and think about what I'm wearing so that I don't get sexually harassed when I go to work. Like that's not something that even comes into my head as a white male. You know what I mean? So this idea of kind of thinking about it from somebody else's perspective is so important right now and so many people miss on it because I got to hit my numbers, I got to do my thing. And that's what's sad about the to me that this I think COVID has a lot of silver linings. The sad part about it to me though is that it's brought out the worst in all of us. And if you remember September 11th, right? When September 11th happened here in the States, it didn't matter what color you were, it didn't matter what religion you were. If I saw you on the streets, we were fucking Americans and we were going to figure this, you know what I mean? We were in it together. And so there was like this embrace of like us, like we got this, right? This has separated us all. Now, if I see you on the street and you're not wearing a mask, I'm avoiding the hell out of you. You know what I mean? I'm staying in my house. I'm protecting my family because I can't trust everybody else. So that seclusion has made it even harder to look at it from somebody else's perspective, which is what my fear is right now from a societal standpoint, is that we've lost that connection to each other. We've lost the perspective of others, and now it's just us.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, John, with the 9/11 because I think it did create a solidarity. Even, we're Canadians, but around the world it did. And I see what you say now about just the mask and how we automatically, think, "Oh, put your mask on and why are you doing that? It's a complete disrespect." But it's like I want maybe like why are they not wearing their mask? Like it's the same thing as the emails. Like why did you not get back to me? And having, and I think that's the thing. People are just so entitled. It's like you didn't respond to my email or this, this is the last time, like this breakup email. I'm like, what is that all about? It's
I
like
always say thank you.
obviously you that's nothing to exactly, you did me a favor, but that was just probably there's no value at all along the journey there. But so, what would you say, people can do, John, to become more others focused, to really say, like, this is the persona I'm targeting. Their role is probably different. Their buying process is probably different. The people who make it, are now remote. So, like, how do you even tap into what are they thinking so that it better prepares you as a rep to deal with them, to kind of become the consultant and really teach them something but take them along the
Yeah, I
journey.
think this is I search for this all the time. The whole genuine curiosity, right? And on my podcast, I ask I don't want to say every guest, but almost every guest can you teach genuine curiosity? And my I guess my gut tells me no. I don't think you can teach people how to be genuinely curious. I think you can give them structure. I can give you guidance to become more curious, but you have to care in order to be curious, right? So first things first, it's I think everything starts with your why. Go back to values and why do you do what you do and what are your core values, right? And then if your core values are about curiosity and figuring things out and helping others and those type of things, well then if you really want to know how to be in somebody else's shoes, ask them. And I know that sounds simplistic,
Mhm.
but I'll give you an example. We guess all the time in sales about, okay, I'm going after a CFO in the healthcare industry, and so I know CFOs care about budget, and healthcare is really rough right now with COVID. So let me try that, right? Well, you know who knows what CFOs in healthcare are going through? CFOs in healthcare. And so there's 2 resources here. One is a fascinating one. It's called Google. What you can do is go in and type in CFOs, healthcare, priorities, challenges 2021, and maybe read a few fucking articles every once in a while about what they are going through today, not in general. And that's a huge thing that I think a lot of companies fail on is they give, when they onboard reps, they give them their ICP, they give them their personas, and they're like, okay, Sally, she's in marketing, she likes to be creative, so go. And what they do is they just regurgitate that. They don't care about it, right? So I'll give you an example of what I did with Morgan. When Morgan came on board, okay, I didn't give him our ideal customer profile. I gave him my top 10 clients. And I said, Morgan, you need to go figure out why these are my top 10. What are the commonalities of these top 10? And I'm going to tell you right up front, it's not revenue. Okay. So I need you to go find out what those things are, right? So now, when he did that homework, when he's looking for new customers, he has a reference point to say, oh, you share similar qualities to our best customers, and our best customers are our best customers because not because of the revenue, but because of the value we bring to them and the relationships and all that other stuff. Same thing with personas. I didn't say, Morgan, here's a VP of sales and this is what they care about. I said, Morgan, we got VPs of sales, CROs, and VPs of enablement. Those are our 3 personas. I want you to go out and figure out what these people do. And so he Googled, and guess what else he did? He went on LinkedIn and he said, hey, everybody, I'm getting into, I'm working for JB Sales now. I've never sold to VPs of enablement before. Are there any VPs of enablement out there right now that would be open to having a brief 15, 30-minute conversation with me just so I can understand what a day in a life looks like for you? And he got all sorts of people jumping on. It's, yeah, Morgan, happy to help, happy to help, happy to help. And then he came back to me with like a one pager of what these people care about. And so now when he's calling these people, he's not regurgitating a pitch. He's bringing up a previous conversation. He's asking a question because somebody else brought that up and he's curious if you have that same problem. That's the piece that, gives them the belief in what they do and gets them out of the regurgitating a pitch. And then the last 2 small tactical things I'll say is, read a job description every once in a while. Go on Indeed and type in the role in the industry of the care and just read all of what they are being held responsible for, right? Interview, if you're out there listening and you're a leader right now, and if you are not leveraging your existing customers right now, shame on you. Because guess what? You put together a quick little advisory board of all the different personas that you sell into, and then once a week, once a month, go to one of your existing customers and say, hey, could you do a little lunch and learn with us here so my team can just pick your brain and ask you about what and then maybe share some of our messaging to you to see if you like it and if it would resonate with somebody like you. The amount of knowledge that'll happen in that 1 hour with a customer of that persona, with your reps asking them questions, will pay so many dividends moving forward with their conversations and everything else. It'd be insane.
Yeah, I love that last one. That reminds me that jobs to be done where it's just, understanding the emotional motivation and the language and what caused them to pull the trigger. Because again, it's repeatable, but I think it's the emotion that you're trying to get to and what was it that you said? Was it what was it about? Um Either their trigger, the point, the level of frustration that allowed them to go over. But you're right, like people don't do that. And I think a lot of the low hanging fruit is with your existing customers.
There. They want you to be successful.
Well, they do because they partnered with you, so they obviously believed in you the first time, but I think it also reinforces the partnership of saying, like, "We wanna continue to make sure that we're meeting your needs," and, is it still, holding yourself accountable too, but just what you shared there about those, examples in Morgan, like, what I took away from that is just, confidence, one, of saying, like a lot of people are, when you hear the word C-suite, they shred up, and it's like, these are people. And I think if you just, like you said, ask them. So it's almost like a sense of confidence and just like just ask a question. It's how you ask it, your tone. You're not coming across as you're genuinely curious because you want to know. I think that comes to there's a bit of you have to be confident in yourself and not fearful of what they're going to say, but also there's an element of grit there. Like how many people would do what Morgan did, or someone like Morgan, that put it out there, and also that out of box thinking, like that's the response he got from one post, I'm sure paved the way in creating or redefining. He started with a blank canvas. Most people aren't. They're starting based on assumptions. And then I say to you, are these still the top three challenges you're facing? And you're like, yeah, in 2018, like, there's no relevance there. So I think there's so much of that. And it sounds like, there's a leadership thing as well there. Like the company also has to give them some guidance because these new kids coming in, like they probably don't even know their why, right? And just even starting on it just makes me think, just as we're talking now, like the soft skills. Like the soft skills are what produce the hard results.
Absolutely, and I think you can at 45 years old now, I can go back and and say this because I think you definitely gain perspective as you age, right? And one of the things, I'll give you a quick example to be, to gain confidence is I used to tailgate with a buddy of mine, right? And we would go every Sunday and we get hammered drunk and we have our blast. And my buddy's dad was sitting there, right? And he was, big guy. He would just sit there and read his paper the whole time. Oh, hey, Mr. Levangie, hey Joe, how's it going? But I would never engage with him. Okay. He passed away a while back, and I read through his obituary. And he was an entrepreneur, he had started 3 companies, he was a VC, like, the amount of knowledge that this guy had, but he was my buddy Jeremy's dad, you know what I mean? So I was just like, "Whatever," right? I the Looking at him and being in the position that I'm in right now, I'm like, "I missed out on such an opportunity to pick somebody's brain who was in that role." So for every, young rep out there listening, I guarantee your parents know CEOs. I guarantee your friends' parents are CEOs or executives in organizations. And if you look at them and you say to yourself, wait a minute, Joey's dad's a CEO. That guy's a clown. You know what I mean? Immediately, it makes it an easier, more relatable thing to when you're not calling a CEO. Now you're calling Joey's dad. You know what I mean? And that type of thing helps you get that, demystify what executives really, that perception. Most executives I talk to, when we get right down to it, I mean, we're doing actually a decent amount of executive roundtables right now where a sponsor sponsors and they give us their list and we invite the top like C levels and VPs and we just do a open roundtable on very specific topics. And it always amazes me how normal those conversations are. And I have an imposter syndrome because I'm not that smart of a kid. State school kid, drank my way through college. I have a harder work ethic than I think most, but I'm definitely not the brightest kid. My EQ is way higher than my IQ. So I do have a little bit of an imposter syndrome when I come into these because I'm like, man, these people are ballers at huge companies. And yeah, I know I'm John Barrows in the space and I'm pretty well known, but yeah. And then as soon as the conversation starts, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, like, we're just shooting the shit here, and you're just a normal person." So talking to them in normal terms as opposed to all these, smart terms that we think are gonna resonate with somebody because, like, it's make me sound intelligent. Like, nah, just be normal and persistent.
Yeah. I'm persistent. Yeah. I think easier said than done because, basically what you're saying is we got to get out of our head, and I could say, I struggle with that early in my career as well. Like I started in my early 20s and I was calling on CEOs and I remember people asking me a question and even now like I teach clarifying question. I wouldn't clarify what they meant because I was like, "Oh, they're going to think that I don't understand the question." And now even that is like, well, that's actually a sign of intelligence because you genuinely want to understand what it is so that you can better and tailor the response. But I think a lot of it is just that perception in our heads. And as you said, as soon as you have the engagement, you start leaning back and going, "Oh, you guys are just normal people." But we maybe let our heads get away with it, or maybe we actually never execute to have these conversations to really find out that what they're just normal. It's Joey's dad or whoever.
Mhm. I mean, the most extreme example on that was Jack Welch when I worked for him. So Jack and Susie Welch. I went in. It was when I had my own company, and so they needed a VP of sales to help their online MBA program get off the ground. And I was like, I got to go at least see what this is, right? So I flew down to Florida. And they said, well, Jack might come into the meeting, but Susie, you're definitely going to meet with Susie. Jack might. So basically, no, right? So I was a little bummed, but whatever. So I'm preparing. I'm sitting in this little startup office, right? There's nothing on the walls, like no glamour. I mean, Jack was a multi millionaire, right? And and I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm taking my notes, and all of a sudden, Jack Welsh walks by the door, and I look over at him, and I don't usually get nervous these days. I've spoken in front of large crowds, and so I don't really. But Jack Welsh was my business idol for a long time, right? His book Winning is one of my favorite books, and so I remember being like, Jack Welsh, and he goes, John Barrows. He's like, "Come on in here." And I'm like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," right? And I'm now sitting across from the man, right? And I got my questions, and there was he had tied his stuff to this piece of crap little university to get accredited, right? And my first question was like, "Jack, why would you tie your I mean, Harvard, Yale, you pick any major and they would love to probably have you as part of their MBA, right?" And so that was going to be my question, but I'm nervous. First thing that comes out of his mouth, he goes, "So by the way," see, so before we get started here, let me tell you why this bag of shit college chancellor university I got myself involved in. He's like, "Boy, did I make a mistake." And as soon as that happened, I was like, "Oh, Jack, what's up?" And then it just ended up being kids from Boston talking to each other. You know what I mean? Like that. And it was just this like my perception and then my reality, which is a lot more times a lot less scary than the perception.
I always go back to Dr. Phil and keep it real. And I think, when you think about now, even, outreach and everyone has these scripts and it sounds, even though a bot didn't write it, it sounds like a bot. So, what are your thoughts on just keeping it real? Like still having, your call to action, whatever it is you're opening about them, but like what's the balance between, just keeping it real, showing that there's a human behind this, that we actually care versus like, this really, blasting into 1,000 people with this scripted and maybe getting one and really that just is damaging your reputation.
Well, yeah, and damaging your addressable market. I look at conversion ratios all the time. I mean, I used to get in an argument with another trainer out there who would, you know, he would say, "Well, we blast out 5,000 emails to the C-suite, and then we look for the referral down, and those are the ones we focus on." And I'm like, "That's a terrible approach." I'm like, "You're whatever." And they're like, "Well, no, because from a time management standpoint, right? And you'll spend 2 hours writing tailored, customized emails, and maybe only get a few meetings. We click a button, we get five." I go, "Yeah, but that's not the point." The point is you just pissed off, 9,000, however many, 99% of what you just sent out to, you just pissed them off. So your addressable market just shrunk. I'd rather go quality over quantity. Now, the challenge that we're in right now is I think we are in a transition phase where everybody understands quality is the answer, right? Account-based marketing, personalization journey, personalized journeys. When you log into Amazon, it recommends just stuff for you and all that. Everybody understands that quality and the experience matters these days. But we're still stuck in the numbers game days because and I think my gut tells me that it's because Gen Xers like me, we grew up in a numbers game. Like I don't know how old you are, but when you first were in sales, I'm guessing it was probably a numbers game where you just did it, right? And so now we've evolved, we get it, the experience and all that other stuff. But guess what? You know what's really hard to coach on is quality. It's really hard for me to coach you on how to care, how to really give a shit when you send that. You know what's easy for me to manage? How many dials did you
Mhm.
hit today? How many dials did you do today? How many emails did you send out? So it's a lazy thing. So we're getting forced down to do these activities, but to really get the crack through the noise, you gotta care. And so what I recommend is anybody out there who's being asked to do 50 dials a day or whatever that is, go ahead and do it. But do yourself a favor, set up a side hustle but have your side hustle be your business, but your hypothesis on quality over quantity. And during the day, do your thing, whatever your manager's asking you. At night, pick 10 accounts. See if they align with who you can, see if they're companies that you would like to do business with. Peel back the layers, do a little bit of research to understand where they are in their life cycle, what some of the challenges that they're faced with are, and then reach out to them in a very thoughtful way. Right, telling a story. I like cadences, but I only like I don't like templated press play cadences. I like cadences that you actually. I like the idea of a multi-touch contact strategy. Okay, but it has to tell a story. It can't just be, did you get my first email, bubbling this one up at the top, and and then you break up 1, 2, 3, stuck under a rock piece of shit. It has to be, hey, hey Karen, I've been following your podcast for a while, and when you and John talked about this, it really opened up my eyes. I love your angle on this, and I'd love to just have a conversation because we're working with some other clients, right? Okay, maybe that doesn't land. My next one, hey Karen, as I've been keeping up to date, as I've been learning more about your business, like these phrases, by the way, are really important. As I learn more about your business, in keeping myself updated on you guys, I actually noticed this thing happen. How are you currently managing that? Because if you got that on lock, Karen, don't mind call, don't bother calling me back. But if you don't, thought it'd be might worth a conversation because we're doing some interesting. then putting a video together, putting a face to a name. You know what I mean? Like I don't think video is a good medium to send out first. I don't think you should at least my recommendation is don't let the video be the first thing that they see because that's just a little weird. An unsolicited video from somebody I don't know, me clicking on a thumbnail, not going to happen, okay? But if you hit me up on social, you engage with me on social a little bit, you show, and not looking to sell me something, but genuinely engaging with my posts and retweeting and sharing certain things, maybe asking a question, then you make a phone call or two, send an email or two, connect with me on LinkedIn, and then send the video to put the face to a name. That's where video has a huge impact on response rates and stuff.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And so it sounds like it's an omni-channel approach or just multi-touch of different, phone, text, email.
Sales reps have to become their own marketers right now. You absolutely have to. Like, you can't rely on marketing, you can't rely on anybody else. This is why personal brand building is so critical right now, because you have to be your own mini marketer. It's not about the one email, it's not about the one voicemail, not about the one thing you send in there. It's about all of it, but it's about the story that you tell them with all of it, and it's also based on where they are. People talk about brand building like, "Oh, should I build my brand on LinkedIn?" I don't know. Is your audience on LinkedIn? If your audience is
Mhm.
on LinkedIn, then yeah, you should probably start doing some stuff on LinkedIn, right? So these are all things that we can control. It's stuff that if you're not doing, I think you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And when you own your development, when you own your brand, when you own the give a shit factor, it's amazing how quickly things turn around.
Yeah, and just when you do own that, you think about all the things that can support that are within your control, as you just mentioned, And I think we have to take that marketing mentality and just even be the creator or the curator of content, because what better way to tell a story than to add your perspective, your point of view, that someone actually goes, "Oh, this is what they stand for," versus just a title. Like your role or your title tells me nothing, but this gives me an angle into what it is, and then I think you're again, it's quality over quantity, but I also think it's that long game. So you're engaging on whatever platform you want to meet them where they're at, but then you eventually move it off there. You're emailing. And then I would agree with you. The video is for me where it's at. And I would also agree that the first one would be a bit weird when there's no context. There's no, like, I probably wouldn't open one. But maybe we can talk a little bit about video and just kind of what you're seeing in terms, because I do think a lot of people still think it's only in that prospecting phase. And I would say there's so many other areas for video. So maybe just give us a little bit of, what you're seeing where people can leverage video to maybe shrink sales cycles, build trust quicker, and just really get that human connection that people are searching for.
I think video is the main way to do that. I mean, yes, prospecting. I will say the majority of our pipeline right now is because of LinkedIn video prospecting. Is when we connect with people, we have a very specific strategy around how to get to them, and then sending them a video. That's more than 50% of our pipeline is coming from that right now. But outside of prospecting, there's so many other ways that video can be used. So I'll give you an example. You and I have a discovery call, right? So say, Karen, I prospected into you. We set up a meeting. You bring two or three other people into that meeting, right? And we have a good conversation, and there are some next steps. Take 2 seconds, throw a video. Hey, Karen, I just got off the call. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for bringing those people. I really learned a lot here. I'm going to be putting together follow up materials, but I just wanted to get this up front. I just want to say thank you. Done, right? That'll leave an impression. Now, say you get an objection. Here's another one. Say, Karen, you and I are in the prospecting, we're in the sales cycle midway through, and all of a sudden you fire back an email. Hey, John, look, our priorities have shifted right now. We're gonna have to put this on the back burner, or we didn't go with you or anything, like whatever the objection is. The goal obviously is, if you can, just pick up that phone as quickly as possible and trying to catch them live and ask them what's going on, those type of things. But the likelihood is they're not going to pick up. So you know what I do is I light up a video. Hey, Karen, look, I just got your email about you guys wanting to put things on pause or maybe go in a different direction. I get it. I'm a little confused though, Karen, because earlier than when you and I were talking, you said your number one priorities were X, Y, and Z, and your timeline for this because of these reasons were this, and now you're pushing this off, and I'm just wondering what's changed. And so if you could just give me 5 minutes so we can have a conversation about this. And look, if it really isn't the right time, it's not the right time. I don't respect that. But I just want to make sure I understand where you guys are right now, because I thought, I was basing all of my approach on the things that you and I had discussed. So I'm a little
Mhm.
confused. If you could call me back there. That takes a zero, like a 0.00%, 0.001% response rate on email to, in our case, about a 15% response rate when using video. Third use
Mhm.
case, delivering proposals. Sales reps have a hard time getting to power, right? So I'm dealing with Jim. Jim's my main point of contact. I got to get to Sarah, right? Jim will not, through my best efforts, Jim will not let me present my proposal to Sarah. You know what I do? Instead of sending Jim the PDF, I put a little video and I do a little video and I put my face on the bottom and have the presentation up and I say, "Hey, Karen, um, instead of just sending you over the PDF of the proposal, I just kind of wanted to walk you through it a little bit here. And by the way, if you wanted to send this to Sarah, right, for evaluation, feel free. And by the way, Sarah, Karen's been fantastic to deal with. Oh, she's got the best interest. Kiss your ass a little bit, and then don't go detailed. Be like, look, you said to us that your number one priorities were X, Y, and Z. Here are the components of our solution that align with that. And look, you can look through the details, but if you have any questions as you go through it, just hit me back here. We've closed like a half a dozen deals in the past year just by using that approach alone, right? And then the last one I'll say is for leadership. And this has been great for us. Most team meetings, the majority of the team meeting can be recorded on a video and sent out to everybody before the team meeting. Product launch updates, forecast updates. I'm not saying forecast reviews, like I want to sit down with my reps and do those forecast reviews, but what we've done is my COO every Monday morning, we have a Monday morning meeting from 9 to 10 o'clock. And I was just like, and most of it was my COO and my chief growth officer talking about everything everything that is. And it would leave 10 minutes. And the overwhelming feedback from my team is the favorite part of those hour long team meeting calls is those 10 minutes when we talk about what you did on the weekends and what you're working on this week and those type of things. So I'm like, guys, can can COO and chief growth can you just record the video of what you're presenting to the team and then send it out about an hour beforehand so we can all watch it and maybe ask very pointed questions, but then we can actually use the call for a collaborative session here. Like there's if you're not using video right now, what the hell are you waiting for? And you can't tell me I don't look good on camera. I'm not comfortable on camera. Well, guess what? Your life is going to get exponentially harder if you don't jump on this train right now and figure out how to make yourself comfortable in this environment.
Wow, those are well, more than four amazing areas to use it, and I've seen them all work as well. And I think that last one, just those asynchronous videos. I always encourage people to do that with their customers because the currency we trade in now is time. And if you're asking somebody for 45 minutes or something, like out of that, just like your time, I'm sure the actual conversation is probably 20 minutes. So can you pre-record, your top 5 questions, even if you have a consensus-based sell where there's different players, get them all on that common level and record a 3-minute video. Let them consume it on their own time. So the big thing is you want to drive engagement, collaboration, communication. If they have that in advance, they're versed. Now they actually have questions. But why would you waste 25 minutes doing that? And it's such a waste of time. And then it's so pointed, it's so others focus as well. Like you're considering their time, saying, look, we only need to meet for 20 minutes. Like that comes back to you in spades.
I mean, you said it, time is the most valuable asset any of us have. And if you want to you want to build rapport with me, guess what? Give me time back. And
Yeah.
also come with some structure to the meeting because I wrote a post a while ago called executives are like children, they need structure, right?
Yeah.
Because an executive, I mean, how many times have you been in an executive meeting with a mental agenda of how you want to see the conversation going about 5 minutes in and ask that random ass question that takes you down the rabbit hole for the next 45 minutes, right? Executives, they're A-type personalities. They want to control the conversation, but and that the main reason is because they don't see any structure to the conversation. And what they're trying to say is, all right, if there's no structure to this, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get value out of this, whether you like it or not. And so now I'm dictating this. But if you put structure in it and you show me where that value is with a shared agenda, those type of things, I tend to fall in line. It's like, okay, cool. Like, all right, now this is the part we can question. Great. Let's talk about questions type of thing.
Mm. Yeah, a framework and structure is critical. I mean, I'll leave a call if there's not because it's just I don't have the time to sit on something where someone's going here, there, and I think everybody wants to know what's the purpose, like what's the objective, and if you don't set that before with an agenda and invite them to be part of it, you're going to get people showing up with their cameras off, they're not asking questions, they're completely disengaged, and it's like that was preventable. So kind of shame on you. And just what you said back to, when we talked about earlier about the C suite and, when you actually get to know them, they're regular people as well. But I think that, we're not giving them a chance. Like even just giving them that structure allows them in and allows us to say, okay, like we're going to run the show here, but they're not willing to release the grips yet because they probably don't think we can do it. So I think there's that, like just letting go of as well. and believing in yourself and having structure so you're not wasting anybody's time.
Well, this is challenger sale too, right? Like there's 2 types of buyers out there. There's sophisticated buyers and there's unsophisticated buyers. And you gotta figure out pretty quickly, and it's not that hard, right? I just ask you, so Karen, how do we get to this point? Like, what research have you
Mhm.
done so far? Where are we in the process? That type of thing. And if you can articulate like we've done this, and this is where we've looked at these vendors, and this is what we know, da, 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 then guess what? I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna okay, well then I'm part of this equation. I'm gonna take your lead, right? What do you need from me? But if you're an unsophisticated buyer, if you're somebody who's never bought this before or doesn't even know how to buy it, then I'm going to lead and I'm going to tell you this is the way it usually is done when done right, right? And you got to obviously have some confidence to do that, but once you really believe in what you do and you know you make a difference, you can pull challenger sale because you can legit say like, look, I'm a little confused. And the mentality, you don't say this with challenger, but the mentality is, look, you make this decision once a year. I help people make it every day. Let me show you where people make
Mhm.
good and bad decisions. And when you bring that level of expertise to the table, people tend to be like, "Damn, okay, all right, this kid knows what they're talking about. Let's follow their lead," type of thing.
Yeah, and I think that the first part is recognizing what category do they fall into first, because if you're gonna take that approach with a sophisticated buyer, they're not gonna
You'll
be
get
happy.
slaughtered. I mean, how many times can I don't know for you, but how many times have you like known you wanted a product or service or whatever it is, but the only way that you can get somebody to reach out to you is putting in a request. The then sales rep, SDR, BDR calls you up and starts asking super basic questions. And you're like, look, I've already gone through this. Like, I just want to see this portion of what it is. And then I want to understand what the price is. But no, 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 no. We have to follow our process, the selling process, not the buying process. And I have to ask you all these questions and I have to spend 45 minutes telling you about all the wonderful things that our company does. And then we'll flip you over to an AE who can then probably ask you the same questions, tell you the same stuff about our business, and show you a demo that's pretty canned. You know what I mean? You put a
Mhm.
sophisticated buyer through that process, they will bounce as fast, even if they want your product, they will bounce faster than you could possibly imagine and go deal with your number one competitor just because.
Mhm. You know what? That's exactly what happened to me. And doing what I do for a living, I was even more frustrated. But I think that's a big takeaway for people now is we talk about meeting customers where they're at and that emotional state when you're ready to buy, you're not in the awareness, you're in the consideration, you're ready to get that credit card out or whatever it is. If you're gonna backtrack and make them go back to a BDR and then do it, like, don't. Like, they know what they want. And I think this just goes back to the buyer, and they are so much more in the buyer's in the driver's seat, but also like they know what they want. Like, what was it? 61% of the time they're spending is researching their product. Like, they know. So don't waste their time. And our job is to create a frictionless experience for them. You're adding friction by doing that.
Dave Cancel said something that I totally believe, and I had him on my podcast. He's the CEO of Drift, right? And I had him on my podcast, and I completely it was one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. And he said, "Look, everything's commoditized. Absolute. I don't care what you sell. I don't care what product service it is. It is a commodity. The only thing that's not is the experience."
Hmm.
I mean, think about it, right? I mean, here in the States, again, it's, let's take airlines. We got JetBlue and we got Spirit Airlines. They both have planes, they both have staff, they both use gas, they both have, you know what I mean? But the experience on JetBlue compared to horrible Spirit Airlines is night and day. So
Hmm.
where do I want to go? I want to go with a better experience, sales experience. Your goal should be when you're in a sales process. One of my goals when I'm in a sales process is I want the client to enjoy that experience so much that they actually want to hire me personally. You know, like when I was a rep, that was my mind because I was a lot of times selling to VPs of sales. I'm like, I'm going to do such a good job that at the end of this, not only are they going to buy from me, but they're actually going to offer me a job because this is the they look at me as the sales rep that they want on their team.
Hmm. The slide I start with in my training is you are the differentiator, because we are all commodities and you are. And the last that I looked at was 53% of the reason they buy is because of the salesperson themselves. So it just kind of brings us back full circle. If more than half the reason they're buying, we need to get our mindset in check. We need to be others focused and really be purposeful. We need to be, leveraging the likes of video for different elements of the sales process to really engage. Because if we're not, like, again, the products they don't differ by that much. So it's kind of that, again, that grit, like, who wants it bad enough? Because if it's up to the individual, the person that's going to do that extra dial, that extra email, they're the ones that are going to be winning.
Always. One of my guidelines is the rule of 1%, right? Which is set a bar at a high but attainable level, and then every day just try to get 1% better. And if you can go home and look yourself in the mirror and say, I am 1% better. Did you make that one extra cold call? Did you send that one extra email? Those type of things. And if I can genuinely say I'm a little bit better than I was yesterday, then I know I'm moving in the right direction. And by the way, that doesn't always happen. There are days that I come home, I'm like, nope, today I was 1,000 times worse. So I'm basically starting way behind the eight balls, but tomorrow I'm going to get a little better. First of all, it helps you stay motivated, right? Because if you just set lofty goals, you're setting yourself up for failure in a lot of ways, because if you don't reach that big ultimate goal, now you're depressed. But if you set mini micro goals all along the way and you build momentum in a positive direction, all of a sudden those big things start to happen. So yeah, the grit I think is critical. The passion for what you do is critical. The belief in what you do, and you look at the work life balance, right? I've always had a hard time with that conversation, because by telling me you're looking for a work life balance, that tells me you work and then you live. And to me, that's pretty depressing, because we sleep about a third of our lives. We work at least a third of our lives. So what you're telling me with that statement is you really only live about a third of your life. That's a scary proposition. You know what I mean? And so I don't consider what I do work, because I love what I do. You know what I mean? Like, I stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, because not because I have to, because I want to, because I enjoy what I'm putting together for the client for the next, for tomorrow or whatever it might be. But yeah, it is a mindset thing. You started this whole thing off with focusing on what you can control, right? And my daughter and I, back in the, I don't want to get political here, but about 5 years ago, when the election was happening here in the United States, my wife and I were very, very passionate about a certain candidate and not about another one. Well, actually, I'm sorry, we were much more passionate against another, and we were always like mad. We'd watch the news and we'd be like, "What the hell?" And I saw it impacting my daughter, because she was all of a sudden, she at the time she was 6, and she was all of a sudden being mean and like aggravated and short and all that other stuff. And I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. No, 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 no. Okay, shut the news off. Done. And my daughter and I came up with this little acronym and said, what can we control? Like, we got it. There's so many factors in our lives that we can't control. Okay. We can't control what the customer does or says or responds to us. We can't control the market. We can't control the economy. We can't control any of that. Right. But what we can control is three things. And we came up with a little acronym of EAT: effort, attitude, and how you treat people. You can control your effort, how hard you work. That is absolutely 1,000% in your control. You can control your attitude, whether it's positive or negative, right? And sometimes we need a little reminder, take us because we're in a negative mindset, change your state, Tony Robbins, whatever. And then the third one is how you treat people. Literally how you treat people. That's what now how they treat you, you can't control that, but how you treat them, you absolutely can. So every morning, you talked about, like, morning routines and those type of things. Every morning when I drop her off at school, I say, all right, what can we control? We got this little handshake where it's EAT, effort, attitude, how you treat people, right? And then we go through that, and that's the mindset of the day. So, if people focus on those things and try to get a little bit better and care about the other side of the equation a little bit more, this world will be a lot better place.
Oh, I love that. And just, effort, attitude, to treat how you treat people. So for those who are listening, those are the three areas you can put into practice immediately. But it's just that bigger picture of oh, there you go,
We got
holding
a
it
little
up.
yeah, we got a
Uh,
little, disc that we hand out to people who are struggling with, all the stresses that we're all under. I'm like, "No, no, no, boil it down, focus on these things," and here's a little reminder.
Well, I think that's great. A visual reminder is great because I think like the pandemic is one thing, but there's going to be something else after the pandemic, and it's just like if we continue to focus on things we can't control, we're just putting us in that perpetual cycle of frustration, of anxiety, of just not a good life. So it's almost like a philosophy, and it just sounds like what you've shared, John, is just the way you go about your life, the way you think, and that all comes into your engagement. So it's just they're getting who you are as a person.
I'll go back to authenticity. It's scary. Kevin Dorsey and I came off of, about 3 years ago. We were at Sales Lofts, user conference, and we both spoke up on stage. And a lot of times when we get, as a speaker, like when you get off stage, what you hope the feedback is, man, that really got me to think. I love the content. Oh, and by the way, I loved how you presented that. You know what I mean? You did a really good job there. But what was happening on this one was both independently. Like, I went up on stage, and then he went up on stage later, and then people came up and talked to us. And the overwhelming feedback had nothing to do with our content. It had everything to do with our authenticity. They were like, "Man, you were just so real up there. It was so refreshing to hear somebody who wasn't full of shit," that type of thing. And it was just like, and Kevin and I, like, we didn't know that was happening, but to both of, and then we got together and I was like, "Hey, weird stuff. Like, let me ask you." And he was like, "Yeah, same thing happened to me." And we're like, "What in the shit?" And it's sad these days that authenticity is a competitive advantage. But but I think people are just searching for it. That's why, let's go again. I know we're running up, but when you leave a voicemail and you screw up, leave the screw up. I
Yeah.
bet you'll get a response. You try to nail
Mhm.
the perfect pitch versus screwing up halfway through and be like, "Look," I used to do this with Thrive. I'd be like, "Oh, we do Thrive Networks outsourced IT support for small to mid-sized companies in the Boston area, right?" And I would go through a whole pitch and I'd be like, "Yeah, I nailed it." And then I'd go, "Hi, this is John Barrows with Thrive Networks. We do outsourced IT uh, oh, shit. Look, I'm sorry. I was trying a new approach. That was a disaster. Look, we fix computers. You got any problems with your computers, call me back." I got loads of calls back when I would do that. You know what I mean? Let's tie one more thing into video. When you're right, the whole thing about video is being authentic. Don't do the whole, "Hey, Karen superimposed on my whiteboard here." And then when you open it up, I'm like, "Hey, you, thanks so much for opening up my email," right? Like, that is gross. Video, you don't have to be a perfect background. You don't, it's better when it's like raw and you make a mistake and you say, you know what I mean? Like, that's what people are just starving for right now.
Yeah, keep it real. I love those. I love that. Well, John, I'm sure after all the insights you shared today, people are going to want to learn a little bit more about you and maybe what you do. So, where would you direct them to find out?
Yeah, I mean, always to our website, jbarrows.com. So J B as in boy, ARROWS.com. But really, LinkedIn, you'll find me, John Barrows. You'll find me pretty easy. And Instagram. So Instagram for me, that's the way I've kind of stopped with all the platforms because I used to be on every single one of them, Snapchat and this and that, and I was just doing them just to do them. So I've really stayed focused now, and LinkedIn is obviously because that's where my biggest network is, but Instagram is really where I'm putting the majority of my effort because that's where I can engage with my audience. I give away a ton of free training and consulting on that. Anytime a rep has a question, they can ping me on DM on Instagram, send me a little video. I'll get them right back to them with another video of like my ideas or thoughts or a resource that I have. So my handle on that one is John M Barrows. So John John M as in Michael Barrows. That's my handle. Hit me up there anytime. And if there's anything that we can do to help out anybody out there, like I said earlier, we put out 90+% of our content for free. We have a whole on-demand platform that you can buy into it and has everything in a more structured format. But if you really wanted to, you could hit our YouTube page, you could hit our LinkedIn and get the majority of what we do for free. So just take advantage of it. And if there's anything I can do to help, feel free to reach out to me.
That's excellent. And we'll have all that in the show notes, John. So I just want to say thank you so much. It was great chatting with you, and for all the nuggets you dropped. I think people. It's really needed now, and I think your just approach of delivering it was is going to be very helpful for those who might be struggling. So thank you again. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for having me on, Karen. I appreciate it.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. And if you enjoyed the show, please like it, share it, and subscribe to either the podcast or the YouTube channel. So thanks again. This is Karen Kelly. Until next time.